For every startup success story that we hear about, you can guarantee that there are 100 failures that you've never heard of. New brands that never get rolling, never get the buzz, and never get off the ground. But failure is a common destination and a risk that every entrepreneur takes. When it comes to the top startup failures though, we're not talking about the ones that seemingly had no hope from the beginning. We're talking about the ones that had all the buzz, game-changing ideas, and even hundreds of thousands of customers, but never met their potential. Whether we're talking about Google Glass or Quibi, a vertically oriented streaming service, all too often revolutionary ideas that are positioned to take over the world end up in the startup trash bin. Unfortunately, the startup graveyard is full of should-have-been success stories. But why do these types of startups fail to achieve what they set out to do despite having a ton of funding, press coverage, and ideas that consumers believe in? Well, as it turns out, there are many reasons. Each startup faces unique ideas based on its own conditions. So to explore this situation, we must look at a few examples of some of these companies and evaluate exactly what went wrong with them. But before we jump in, if you like these kind of videos, then hit the subscribe button and notification bell below so you don't miss any of our updates. With that out the way, let's jump in. The first failed startup on our list is the smartphone company, Essential. Very few smartphone startups have ever created as much hype as Essential, and for good reason. First off, the smartphone device company was founded by Android co-founder and tech world legend Andy Rubin. Add to that a genuinely promising product with a streamlined design and a focus on the features that customers care about, and they had all the ingredients necessary to cook up a win. Unlike many startups, Essential had no problem raising funding. They raised over $330 million in 2 funding rounds, giving them a considerable runway and enough resources to bring an amazing product to market. Early on, things looked promising. The phone was designed differently from other smartphones on the market. It had a titanium and ceramic body, an edge-to-edge display protected by Gorilla Glass 5, and 2 rear cameras, one of which was dedicated to black and white photography. The device also had a 360-degree camera that could be attached to the top. Before launching the device, Essential racked up numerous press mentions with high review from publications like Wired, iFixit, CNET, and This Week in Tech. Tech reviewer Marquise Brownlee gave the phone an award for Best Design in his annual Smartphone Awards series in 2017. But shortly after releasing the phone, the problems mounted up. Sales were dismal, and while many early reviews were positive, there were an equal number of negative reviews. A second version device was planned and canceled, and several other projects met the same demise, including a smart home assistant and operating system. Not only was the product shaky, the founding team also had issues. A New York Times report drew attention to accusations of sexual misconduct against Andy Rubin, which allegedly led to him leaving Google. In 2019, the company announced that it was working on another phone, Project Gem, but the design was too unique and unfamiliar to consumers. Eventually, the company announced that it had no clear path to deliver the phone to customers, and as a result made the decision to cease operations and shut down the company. I guess it wasn't so essential after all. Next on our list of failed startups is the once mega startup Jawbone. Back around 2014, when Bluetooth accessories were all the rave, Jawbone launched as a promising competitor to other wearable tech companies like Apple and Fitbit. Jawbone's products weren't necessarily revolutionary, but the company had many promising attributes. In 2015, Fortune magazine chronicled the company's birth and rise. Jawbone was a certified unicorn startup, once boasting a $3 billion valuation. After securing over $930 million in venture capital and investor funding, everything seemed to be on the right path. The launch of the UP3 activity tracker band was supposed to represent a new pivot for the company, showcasing their ambition to rise to the top. But their humongous investment into this product did not lead to market success. Customers complained about various problems with their devices, which made it less valuable at its high price point. Furthermore, it had stringent limitations that weren't apparent in competitor products like the Fitbit, which was cheaper, and the Apple Watch, a product that had the backing of one of the world's most powerful tech companies. The year 2016 signaled an end for Jawbone. In that year, they stopped producing their fitness trackers and eventually sold all of their inventory to a reseller. Unable to pay for its vendor services, Jawbone cut the relationship that they had with their customer service agency, which then led to major customer support issues. Jawbone sued Fitbit with accusations that they stole employees and trade secrets. As a result, several former Fitbit employees were indicted for possessing confidential intellectual property. Even with the win against Fitbit, Jawbone couldn't maintain their success. Eventually, they reached the end of their financial runway and lost their market position. Now that's a punch that'll break your jawbone. Next on our list of startups that failed is, you guessed it, Google Glass. Take it back to the early 2010s and you'd swear that by now we'd all be driving flying cars and wearing Google glasses, a wearable voice and motion controlled Android device that resembles a pair of eyeglasses and displays information directly in the user's field of vision. The slick design of the device was similar to something we see in a comic book or a Marvel movie, where some characters have tech-enabled helmets, visors, or goggles that display stats and information to the user. It may not seem revolutionary in 2021, but in 2013 it was lauded as the next greatest shift in technology. And if anyone could bring the product to life, it should have been Google, one of the world's most well-known and well-capitalized tech companies. Although Google Glass graced the pages of some of the most prominent tech publications and consumers seemed ready for the product, users felt like Google didn't deliver on their promises. First, the design was clunky, and many customers felt like they were wearing a prototype instead of a finished product. They eventually launched a new version, but consumer interest had already dwindled. Second, consumers had security concerns, realizing that the device could possibly collect significant data from the consumer during its use. And at $1,500 a pair, the pricing alienated many tech-interested consumers who weren't willing to spend on a pair of glasses that cost as much as a laptop. Google is still working on the Glass, adding things like AR and VR capabilities, but the buzz that surrounded the product has died. Unfortunately, Glass shatters, and so do startups. The next failed startup brand on our list is Brandless, a company that claims to not be a brand at all. It's difficult for any startup to compete in price against huge brands like Walmart, but Brandless certainly tried. Their premise was to change how we pay for food, buying food items straight from producers, cutting out the middlemen, and operating with almost no marketing or branding to pass all savings onto the customer. The company promised that customers could buy household goods at only $3 each, and they had a vast array of products from food to pet supplies and baby products. To date, the company has raised around $410.5 million over 6 funding rounds. Although Brandless is back operating today under new ownership, the company abruptly closed its doors in 2020. Part of their issue was the inability to deliver on their pricing promise to customers. They possibly could have overcome this issue through proper communication with their customers, but since they considered themselves as a brandless brand with no intentional marketing, they weren't able to connect with consumers in a way that would keep them loyal to the brand without the low price benefit. The company's founders quickly realized that the business model was not sustainable. Today, the restructured company offers numerous product bundles, a pivot from their initial individual product approach. Maybe the second time around will prove successful, but only if they focus on making Brandless into, well, a real brand. Finally on our list of failed startups is Quibi, a play on the word quick bites. Sometimes investors believe in products much more than consumers do, and that was the case with Quibi, a subscription-based streaming platform designed to deliver quick bites of content to user cell phones. Quibi's founders gave the impression that the platform would transform the way younger viewers consume content on the go. Many people were skeptical of the project, but this skepticism was overshadowed by founder Jeffrey Katzenberg's reputation. As former chairman of Walt Disney Studios and co-founder of DreamWorks Animations, investors figured that no matter what, the company was a safe bet. Quickly, the company raised over $1.75 billion in investor funding, but only 6 months after launch, the founders announced that they would be shutting the platform down. Ultimately, Quibi's content didn't resonate with users, and as a result, they found it difficult to bring in new subscribers. Then the pandemic hit, and the streaming landscape became much more competitive as more people supplemented outside entertainment with in-home streaming. Unfortunately, Quibi's model worked against how customers shifted their attitudes post-pandemic. While Quibi was offering short 5 to 10 minute episodes that people could watch on the go, no one was on the go anymore. Now people were stuck at home and consuming longer content, not just on their phones where Quibi delivered its content, but also on their computers and televisions. Just because a product market fit exists today doesn't mean that it will forever. Essentially, Quibi lived up to its name. The whole life of the company was just one quick bite. Sometimes high potential startups don't live up to the hype, and there are a million reasons why. Hopefully by learning how these startups failed, you can avoid the same mistakes and create a business that becomes wildly successful. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and if you did, be sure to leave a like down below. And with that, I'll see you next time. Until then, take care and keep creating amazing shit.